Good morning. This morning I have the privilege of introducing a woman on a mission to make a difference. In a recent talk titled Acceptance, former Marine Captain Kristen Kavanaugh shared her personal story about the consequences of being a lesbian serving under the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, which, as you know, prevented gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender service members from serving openly. Kavanaugh is a former Marine captain who served for 5 years, including one combat deployment in Iraq. During the nationwide effort to repeal the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy in 2010, Kavanaugh came out confounding the Military Acceptance Project, a San Diego nonprofit that promotes inclusiveness for military personnel who feel isolated from their peers for reasons of sexuality, ethnicity, race, religion, or personal trauma. In speeches and appearances, the San Diego resident stresses the importance of acceptance becoming an integral part of the community and military culture. We believe the true strength of our community, especially the military, depends on the physical, mental, and emotional health of every person and their connections to one another, says Kavanaugh. Please help me welcome Kristen Kavanaugh.
Thanks, Wendy, and thank you all for being here today. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about adversity as a game changer. We all experience adversity. For some of us, that looks like isolation from friends and family or the tragic loss of a loved one. For some of us, adversity feels like an endless climb up the corporate ladder only to be halted by a seemingly unbreakable glass ceiling. For me, adversity looked like dried ink on a piece of paper. Meaningless until I lived the experience, harmless until I read the words. Adversity looks and feels differently for all of us because we're all different. But I think that there's value in discussing the ways that we come together by the journeys that we take,
and certainly
that looks like isolation from friends.
Good morning. This morning I have the privilege of introducing a woman on a mission to make a difference. In a recent talk titled Acceptance, former Marine Captain Kristen Kavanaugh shared her personal story about the consequences of being a lesbian serving under the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, which, as you know, prevented gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender service members from serving openly. Kavanaugh is a former Marine captain who served for 5 years, including one combat deployment in Iraq. During the nationwide effort to repeal the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy in 2010, Kavanaugh came out confounding the Military Acceptance Project, a San Diego nonprofit that promotes inclusiveness for military personnel who feel isolated from their peers for reasons of sexuality, ethnicity, race, religion, or personal trauma. In speeches and appearances, the San Diego resident stresses the importance of acceptance becoming an integral part of the community and military culture. We believe the true strength of our community, especially the military, depends on the physical, mental, and emotional health of every person and their connections to one another, says Kavanaugh. Please help me welcome Kristen Kavanaugh.
Thanks, Wendy, and thank you all for being here today. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about adversity as a game changer. We all experience adversity. For some of us, that looks like isolation from friends and family or the tragic loss of a loved one. For some of us, adversity feels like an endless climb up the corporate ladder only to be halted by a seemingly unbreakable glass ceiling. For me, adversity looked like dried ink on a piece of paper. Meaningless until I lived the experience, harmless until I read the words. Adversity looks and feels differently for all of us because we're all different. But I think that there's value in discussing the ways that we come together by the journeys that we take to accept the role that adversity plays in our lives and the way that we choose to integrate the strengths that we gain by overcoming hardship. We're united in the way that we use those strengths for one common goal: to change the game for the next generation of women. This is the story of my journey. I graduated from the Naval Academy in May of 2002, 8 months after the attacks on 9/11. One thing was certain: I was going to war. But going to war wasn't the only challenge of my military career. You see, I'm a lesbian. I was serving under Don't Ask, Don't Tell, a policy that prevented people like me from serving openly. Serving openly wasn't the biggest challenge. For me, feeling accepted by a culture that was taught to treat people like me differently, that was my struggle. If you take Don't Ask, Don't Tell for face value, it seems simple. You can't ask, I can't tell. It's easy. But when you think about all the ways that we indirectly ask and tell on a daily basis, that's when it gets complicated. Where are you going this weekend? Who are you hanging out with? What are you going to do? I dodged all of those questions because I felt like the honest answers: I'm going to San Francisco with a woman to hang out in the Castro, screamed I'm a lesbian. But by giving the dishonest answers, I felt like I was betraying my values. I was paranoid. I didn't know why people were asking. Were they asking because they suspected that I was gay and they were trying to out me? Or were they asking because they genuinely cared and just wanted to get to know me? I could never be sure, so I played it safe. When I graduated from the Naval Academy, I had two options. I could seek a commission in the Navy or seek a commission in the Marine Corps. And I wanted to be a Marine so bad. All the Marines that I had met held themselves and each other to the highest standard. Not to mention they were badasses and had the best uniforms, but that's a story for a different day. The Marines, they were the few and the proud. And I thought if I could prove myself to the Marines and have them accept me as one of their own, then that means that I was worthy of wearing a uniform. But I quickly learned becoming one of the few didn't necessarily make me one of the proud. Consider this. It's Valentine's Day, 2004, and I'm deploying for Iraq. The woman that I'm seeing at the time flies in to see me off. She picks me up. We're driving to Miramar Air Station. The silence in the car is deafening. A million thoughts running through my head, but I just can't seem to focus on anyone. We drive onto base. She parks a half a mile from where the other families are dropping off their Marines. This is where we're going to say our goodbye. In a parking lot. In a car. Because the second she steps out of this car, she ceases to become my girlfriend, and she becomes my buddy in the eyes of everybody around us. She looks at me, tells me she loves me, and I feel like I'm hearing it for the first and possibly the last time. I take a deep breath, say, okay, let's go. We grab my gear, walk over to where the other families are saying goodbye to their Marines. Husbands, wives, mothers, brothers, sisters, all saying goodbye to their Marines. And the Marines, they were trying to be strong. And I was trying to be strong too. So I told myself, you don't need this emotional goodbye. But I think looking back now, it's actually telling myself, you don't deserve this emotional goodbye. So I tried to stay strong. My heart was breaking in a million pieces. And the only person that understood that was standing right next to me. felt like she was a million miles away. We said our goodbye, sealed it with a brief hug and a solid high five. She walked away. And I tried not to watch her walk away because I knew if I looked, I would lose it. And if somebody saw me lose it, they might suspect that we were more than just friends. So I walk over to my gear instead, keep myself distracted. There's a Marine leaning up against the fence next to my bag. We make eye contact. He says, "Hey, aren't you glad you don't have to deal with this?" As he points to a family that's having a hard time holding it together. Gave him a half smile and I nodded. He had no idea what I was going through. And he never would. And no one in the Marine Corps would ever understand. Because I couldn't tell them. This was the beginning of the end of my Marine Corps career. Because the more that I was able to accept myself and my sexuality, the less I was able to tolerate living in silence. When I came back from Iraq, I knew just how much strength and determination it was going to take to make it through the next 3 years of my active duty service. And I tell you, there are some days I didn't think I had the emotional capacity to do it. But that's the nature of adversity. It rocks us at the core of our being and challenges us to the point of collapse. But once we make it through, we gain the strength and confidence to know that we can endure just about anything. And we've all been there, right? We've all been challenged emotionally and mentally and physically. You've wanted to give up. But something inside you said, keep going. Keep pushing forward. And because you do, you gain resilience. And you know you have the strength and confidence to face any challenge that comes your way and beat it before it beats you. When I left the Marine Corps, I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to run away and never deal with Don't Ask, Don't Tell again. But a larger part felt like I was leaving my friends behind to fend for themselves under Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I knew that I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what that something was. So I did nothing until I went back to grad school. I went back to the University of Southern California to get my master's in social work, and I was studying military social work with an emphasis in trauma and the LGBT military experience. Go figure. So I made a promise to myself when I started my program, I would let myself live authentically for the first time in my life. If people didn't like me because I was gay, that was on them, not on me. I also made the promise that I would let myself be vulnerable. I gotta tell you, as a Marine, it goes against everything that I was ever taught in the Marine Corps. But I thought it was important because I wanted people to get to know me. And that was gonna take talking about my story. Now, at the same time that I was in grad school, there was a national effort to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Some amazing organizations and a lot of great people came together, and their hard work finally came to fruition in December of 2010. Over the holiday, and Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed over the holiday. So I came back to school in January, and I was in a social justice class, and our professor gave us an assignment to choose an underserved population and advocate for them for the semester. It's going to be a class project. And she said, who has some ideas about populations that we can serve? So I raised my hand. I said, well, what about gay and lesbian service members? Not thinking that anybody would want anything to do with that. But much to my surprise, 12 of my classmates raised their hand and said, okay, let's do it. I said, all right, let's do it. My professor pulled me aside after class and she said, Kristen, I need you to lead this project. I said, whoa, wait a minute. I did not sign up to lead anything. I merely suggested that it might be a good idea. She said, no, stop. I need you to lead this project. And I paused. Forget authenticity and vulnerability. I didn't want anything to do with that. I wanted to run away from my experience because I wasn't ready to face it. But I thought about it. What if, by telling my story, I could change the way that people thought and felt about gay and lesbian service members? What if, by telling my story, I could help one Marine find the courage to come out to her friends and family? What if, by telling my story, I could change the game ever so slightly for gay and lesbian service members? The choice was clear. I had the opportunity to do something. I had the power to do something. I had the responsibility to do something. So I agreed to lead the project. Along with 12 of my classmates, we started the Military Acceptance Project. And we found our niche in helping service members transition between Don't Ask, Don't Tell and the repeal. We also went out in the community and helped people get to understand the LGBT military experience and break down those stereotypes that people had of gay service members. But the biggest thing, we wanted to change the culture of the military to recognize the sacrifices and the dedication of all service members. We wanted to make sure that they understood that we all are valuable to the mission. Now, as the organization grew and we picked up some national attention, I watched my team members get really excited. And I said, guys, this isn't about us. It's about the people that we serve. But an interesting thing happened. The more they got out in the community and connected with gay and lesbian service members, and service members in general, they found common ground in their experiences with adversity and overcoming obstacles, and in the strengths that they had gained. And they all grew. This was absolutely about us. Because now we were using that strength that we had gained throughout those years to serve other people. Now, I've had 15 years to look back at my experience with Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I finally realized that I've gained more than I suffered. I won't go as far to say that my experience was necessary, but I'll go as far to say that it was worth it. Because now I see the opportunities that are open to men and women that weren't there before. I look out in this room and I see so many women who have the power and the influence to do great things. And I know that didn't come without a price. And I know that didn't come without sacrifice. But I also know that it resulted in even more strength and confidence. Now's the time. Use that strength. You have the ability to influence the next generation of women. You have the responsibility to change the game for the next generation of women. And it doesn't take much. You don't have to start an organization or a national movement. You can start a mentorship at your workplace. Even if you change the life of one woman, it's worth it. You don't have to stand up on stage and give speeches. You can stand up in front of your child's classroom and let them see what a powerful woman looks like. If you can do more, go bigger. Do more and go bigger. Now's the time. I challenge you. Let yourself be vulnerable. Find a way to use the strength that you've gained through your own personal journey with adversity and change the game. The next generation of women need you. The women in this room need you. And I need you. Thank you.